Hello everyone, welcome to the weekly lecture videos once again. In this video, I'm going to talk about modified internal rate of return, MIRR. You may recall that in the last video, we discussed some problem associated with IRR. So to address some of these problems, we often modify the IRR, or we use a modified version of the IRR. Okay, so we will see soon that there are several different ways of calculating a modified IRR, but the idea is to modify the cash flow first and then calculate the IRR using the modified cash flows. That's why it is called modified IRR or MIRR. There are basically three approaches: discounting approach, reinvestment approach, and combination approach. So let me briefly discuss each of them. First of all is the discounting approach. With the discounting approach, all negative cash flows are discounted back to the present value at the required rate of return and added to the initial cost. Okay, and then the IRR is calculated. Okay, so you recall that IRR provides misleading result when there is non-conventional cash flows. So non-conventional cash flows means if there is negative cash flows during the life of the project, not at the inception, but during the life of the project. So in case of this non-conventional cash flow, if there is any negative cash flow, then all these negative cash flows are discounted back at zero time and they are added with the initial investment. Okay, and then as usual, the IRR is calculated. Because only the first modified cash flow is negative, so there will be only one IRR. The discount rate used might be the required rate of return, or it might be some other externally supplied rate. Okay. The next one is reinvestment approach. With the reinvestment approach, we compound all cash flows, positive and negative both, except the first one, to the end of the project's life, and then calculate the IRR. Okay, so you understand the point? Like if you have a project, you have cash flows at zero time and in different years, some of them might be negative. So what we do is we compound them to the end of the project, find out the future value of each of these cash flows at the end of the project, and then we calculate IRR. In a sense, we are essentially reinvesting the cash flow that occur every year and not taking them out until the very end. Okay, so essentially you will have two cash flows, one at the inception of the project and another is at the end of the project. Okay, and then we will calculate IRR in the usual way. The rate that we use could be the required rate of return on the project, or it could be a separately specified reinvestment rate. And the last one is the combination approach. As the name suggests, the combination approach blends both the discounting approach and reinvestment approach. So what we do is negative cash flows are discounted back to the present and added with the initial investment, and positive cash flows are compounded to the end of the project. Okay, so you have, once again, you have one cash flow at the inception and a one cash flow at the end. So, and then we calculate IRR. In practice, different discount and compounding rates might be used, but we will again stick with the project's required rate of return. Now, the next question is, what do we use? Modified IRR or just IRR? Which one is better? Look, although we discussed several approaches to calculate MIRR in the previous slide, MIRRs are controversial. At one extreme, there are those who claim that MIRRs are superior to IRRs. For example, by design, MIRRs clearly do not suffer from multiple rate of return problem. At the other extreme, detractors say that MIRR should stand for meaningless internal rate of return. Okay, so as with our discussion, One problem with the MIRR is that there are different ways of calculating them, and there is no clear reason to say that one of the three methods is better than the other. Okay, the differences are small with one simple cash flows, but they could be much larger for a more complex project. Furthermore, it's not clear how to interpret an MIRR. It may look like a rate of return, but it is a rate of return on a modified set of cash flows, not on the project's actual cash flows. Okay, so let's not take sides. However, notice that calculating an MIRR requires discounting, compounding, or both, which leads to two obvious observations. First, if we have the relevant discount rate, why not calculate the NPV and be done with that? And second, because an MIRR depends on an externally supplied discount rate, the answer you get is not truly an internal rate of return, which by definition depends on only the project's cash flow. Okay, so we will take a stand on one issue that frequently comes up in this context. The value of a project does not depend on what the firm does with the cash flows generated by that project. A firm might use a project cash flow to find other projects, to pay dividends, or to buy an executive jet. It doesn't matter. How the cash flows are spent in future does not affect their value today. As a result, there is generally no need to consider reinvestment of interim cash flows undermining the basis of MIRR. Okay, so that's the end of our discussion on MIRR. Thank you very much.